Hey friends, and welcome to an episode of Dance Principles United. I am here with Nath.
Hi, how are we doing? We're recording from home today through all sorts of different fun things.
It's one of those days.
It is one of those days. It's wet and rainy anyway, so here we are. But I guess what's been going on?
What's been going on? We've been having so much fun in Studio Growth Club. We've been running a little bit of a competition.
Yes.
Now, I know business isn't a competition because we're all on our own journey and we're all trying, to build the studio of our dreams, and that looks different to every person, of course. However, a little bit of healthy competition never goes,
Never goes astray and helps. I think what it's really done is help hold themselves accountable for the numbers, because at the end of the day, like we always talk about, we can only improve what we measure.
Yeah.
And even though yes, we are all running our own race, we are wanting to improve our own studios. We're wanting to improve ourselves, and that happens when we record things like even boring things like numbers.
Absolutely. So, look, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into it on another episode and some of the incredible results. But, oh my gosh, some of the results that some of our members are getting is absolutely wild.
Especially when because we've been recording things like class placements and student numbers, but primarily class placements. But then we've been going a step further and breaking down just how many dollars that means is coming in for the rest of this term and then for the rest of the year, let alone all the future years. And those just that number of how much extra revenue is coming in for some people this year is mind blowing.
Absolutely. And look, it's interesting because we've been teaching Open Week for a long time. We've done it always for a long time, and we've been teaching it inside Studio Growth Club the last few years, and it's had new versions each time. And look, this could be a whole nother episode of a podcast.
It will be.
But, I do see a lot of other studios doing it, but there's a difference between doing an Open Week that you've just thrown together and doing it well.
Yes.
Because if you're not having success with it, you are not doing all the things. Because some of our studios are having this, oh my gosh, incredible results, adding so much money to their bottom line for the rest of the year. So
we're talking tens of thousands of dollars.
Oh, there was some people that were $30,000 and more.
For the rest of this year.
For the rest of this year on class fees alone that they've added in 1 week, which is so, so incredible. We're super excited. We're in our little competition we kind of talked about, we are going to visit 3 studios who have the highest percentage increase in class placements. Yep. So we're super excited. I can't wait to do that.
It's going to be going on the road.
Yes. Studio Growth Club on the road. But super exciting. I'm pumped for this. Now, you just got back from Mexico.
Yes, which will be a podcast in itself, I'm sure, as well.
Absolutely. As our listeners know, Beck's been in Italy, and you will be hearing a podcast a little bit about her daughter. If you heard the last podcast, we were talking about her daughter going over to do World Dance Movement in Italy. Spoiler alert, I'm sure you've seen on socials. If you don't already follow us on the Dance Principles United Instagram, make sure you do, because her daughter BB won World Dancer of the Year, which was incredible. So we're going to have a chat about that on a future podcast. But you've been in Mexico too.
Yeah, it's been really, really tough for me and Beck jet setting over the world while you stay here with the kids. Which I'm very appreciative of. And I'm still unpacking the learnings from that, making sure, because, we practice what we preach, and we are making sure that we're constantly evolving ourselves and constantly learning things to put into our businesses, so that we can serve the dance studios that we work with so much better. So like I said, the actual learnings there is probably a whole podcast within itself. But I also something that I always think about. So I was very, very fortunate to be able to.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, very fortunate to be able to fly first class over there.
Oh my gosh. And obviously first time in first class.
Yes, very much so.
And paid for, not paid for, just to be super clear.
So it's one of those things we are one of the people that earn points through our business through credit cards, which is a whole nother thing. But I was being a little bit of a travel princess. And look, it's a 22-hour flight, and not to be too much of a travel princess, but I'm like, I'm a relatively big human, and I knew that if I flew over there for 22, 24 hours, then I wasn't going to be the best version of myself. Oh, yeah,
stop.
I can try and justify. No, but I wasn't going to go. But then this points flight became available on the last day that we were able to book, and it was like the stars aligned.
Yeah.
But like it was the overall experience, right?
And just to be clear with all our listeners, you are more excited about this flight
absolutely.
than actually being in Mexico.
Almost certainly. But what I was thinking about while I was enjoying my experience was, geez, uncomfortable. But apart from thinking, gee, uncomfortable, was we always talk about wanting to have first-class experiences within our studios.
Absolutely.
And like the first-class experience, I flew Qantas first class on the big A380, massive plane. And that first-class experience really starts from the minute you walk into the airport.
Yeah, into the terminal itself.
Into the terminal itself. You have your own dedicated check-in where they're very lovely, and you can get your bags ported for you from your car. They can arrange to meet you there.
Greet you by name, all of those things.
All of those things. You have your own dedicated security and check-in line, so you breeze through that in about 47 seconds, and then next minute you're at the amazing first-class lounge, which, the restaurant there is like as good as you find anywhere on the ground in Sydney. And now look, obviously we can't have sort of like, Michelin star level restaurants in our studios.
Oh, we can't? All the massages.
There was the free 20-minute massage.
We can't
as well.
do that in our studio.
We probably
crazy.
Can't quite afford that in our studios. But, things like when I walked into the first class lounge again, talking to you by name. It would obviously been like communicated through from that front desk check-in to the lounge that, Mr. Barr was on his way.
Yeah.
The dude in the black cap or whatever it was like.
Yeah.
And so when I walk in, then they greet me by name and they, your first time in the first lounge, sir? I'm like, yes, it is. And so then somebody is there to show me around all the different
show you where to find things.
Exactly, where to find things, what I'm able to access, what I'm able to do, and we're going to book you in for like all those kinds of things. And then they're all the experiences. Like I said, we can't have the restaurant and all those sorts of things, but we can always make sure that if we've got trials coming to the studio, that our front desk team are ready to greet them by name.
Absolutely. That's a very doable thing. And that makes people feel really seen.
Absolutely. We're not having 58 trials come through every afternoon, guys.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yep.
We've got 4 or 5 a day if we're lucky type thing. So knowing that they're the 4 or 5 people coming through and making sure that, the front desk team is there by name who's coming.
Yep.
When they come, that we show them around the studio.
Just that whole being shown where things are. I think there's so much power to that because, how awkward is it when you walk into a waiting room, let's think about going to the beauticians or the hairdresser or whatever, and you're not told where to sit.
Yes.
For example, or where the bathroom is or any of those things. You're like, am I allowed to sit here? Am I allowed to just those things and what you can access was what it was in the first class lounge. But there's a version of that in our studios.
And then all the way through onto the plane as well. Then the stewards on the plane, again, knew my name. They were preempting any questions I might have had. I obviously, pardon me, looked like somebody that might not have been in that seat before and was so they're preempting any questions that I've had. Oh, is it your first time flying with us up here, sir? And like I said, answering any questions I've got about the touchscreen, about setting up
before you asked.
Exactly. They knew the questions that somebody was going to ask and they were starting to answer them for me. So what does that look like in your studio as well?
Absolutely. I love that. So many great things to kind of think about.
Absolutely.
And I love thinking about that, whether you're first class on a plane, which I have not been, just as an FYI, or you're at a nice hotel or a fancy restaurant or any of those things. It's great to kind of go, how could I implement this inside my studio?
Yeah, without a doubt. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm not here to humble brag. That's not what
really?
the podcast...
It was a little bit of a humble brag.
Let's be honest. But that's not what we were talking about today.
No, absolutely not. We wanted to talk about the social media ban. We are recording this the day before it goes live. And in Australia, we've got a social media ban coming up. And it's something that's been discussed a little bit with our Studio Growth Club members and what we think and how it might impact us as studio owners. And I know you are super passionate about it.
Yes. So I listen to lots of business and tech podcasts, and it's been a big, the impact of social media on our teens especially is a hot button topic all the way through and has been for years. But for those that maybe haven't followed along as closely, last year back in late November, the Australian government proposed that there will be a ban on all social media accounts for those 16 years and under. And look, this is like pretty massive. Like it's really
nowhere else in the world's done it, right?
It's world leading stuff, and the rest of the world is really focusing in on how Australia is, number one, going to try and do this, and number two, the success that they have in it. It's been like in the States, they've tried doing various degrees of it, like European Union, a lot of countries there have tried to do it, like without really any success. And so much of the world is focused on Australia and how it's going to handle it. And it's interesting, it's these platforms need to take reasonable steps to make sure that children 16 years and under don't have these platforms. So there's a lot of word salad in there and things like that.
Yes.
And not only is it going to affect any new accounts that kids try and start, but these platforms are expected to shut down the accounts of any current users that are 16 years and under.
And the interesting thing, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's on the platform owner and the onus is on them. So they will be the ones that are getting fined, for example, if they are found to have children on the platform, etc.
Yes.
Hey, this is really interesting because I'm just going to side note here. We've actually been having a lot of podcast listeners from America recently.
Which is great. Say hi.
So great. Hi. From France as well, really randomly, and a few other places around the world.
Because our French is very poor.
But, so you might not know about this. And if you are listening from one of those countries, can you drop us a message? Because we would love to hear from you and love to hear what you think about this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, it's one of those things, there's lots of reasons why, and there's lots of cynicism around it, I get, why people think this might not work.
Yeah,
I get it, right? Because, at the moment, of course, no child under 13 in Australia has an Instagram or a TikTok account because that's what the rules say, right? So that, and I can, obviously everybody's hopefully can hear the sarcasm in my voice. And if you don't hear the sarcasm, you're rolling your eyes thinking, geez, you're an idiot, Nathan.
Yeah.
But
rightly or wrongly. And it's not about our agreement or not agreement, but that's just the reality of the situation. Yeah.
Exactly. Because at the moment there's no onus on these platforms. They basically don't give a shit.
Yeah. Why would they care?
No, their metrics are they want more people on their platform. That's how they sell ads to advertisers and maximise profits to their shareholder. And that's what they're about. And anybody that tells you otherwise, that's okay as well.
Yeah.
And look, we know that obviously kids are good at getting around these things. Sometimes they get the assistance of their parents to start these accounts as well. And again, we're not here to talk about any of that. But, they're obviously some of the reasons why people are saying this is only going to be another one of those Band-Aid solutions. It's not going to work. So I understand some of that skepticism as well. And it very well may be the case.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a few reasons that this one might actually stick and might actually work.
What makes it different that makes it perhaps work?
Yeah, because so we talked about the fact that there's no onus on these platforms to actually enforce any of this. They wave their hands and
at the moment.
Absolutely.
They choose to make it a 13 and above, but they don't actually care.
They pretend like they care. Interestingly, just around the time this was announced, Instagram rolled out their teens platform thing across the US, and it just so happened that, believe it or not, they could determine whether people were teens or not.
Shocking.
They just choose not to.
Yeah.
They've got algorithms, they've got AI running. They can choose things like syntax in the language of their chats and things and the comments. They know exactly pretty much how
Meta are smarter than we are.
They know exactly how old these people's accounts are and can shut them down within a
Absolutely,
heartbeat.
if they wanted to.
They choose not to. But this new law in Australia is going to be fining the platforms up to $50 million Australian for non-compliance.
Okay.
And look, sometimes that sometimes equates to $3.50 US, but it probably comes out to about 30 mil maybe US.
Yeah, it's not nothing.
It's not nothing, right? Yeah. So there is a little bit of disincentive for the first time ever anywhere in the world for these platforms to actually comply. And like I said, it's not so much about what Australia's going to do. But these big platforms are really worried about then the domino effect that it might have. Because if it works in Australia, well, they know that these countries in Europe will do it before the US.
Yes.
Because they have a lot more power over there with their data protection and all that sort of stuff. And they're a much bigger market than Australia.
Yes.
And if those sort of countries start doing it as well, so then it's just going to start, then it will effectively work its way through to the US. So that's what they're worried about. So I think there really is a case that this one, like, it's got more chance than any others have of working, right?
Yeah, which is super exciting.
Yeah.
And really, really different.
As a parent, like
as a parent, I'm all about
absolutely stoked for it.
Absolutely, especially when our our eldest isn't quite there yet that she's asking, and hopefully this will be coming in before she gets to that kind of age.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll never have that issue of that fight when they're 14 or whatever that a lot of parents have going, oh, I want to be on Instagram, and the parents going, oh, I don't know about this, that whole thing. Hopefully we will just avoid that situation altogether. We've got perfect age children.
100%, because we understand as well, like the peer pressure that comes with it.
Yeah,
like it's so hard, like, because there's a level of exclusion when they're not on the platform. Like, and no parent wants that for their kid, but they know the damage that these things cause.
And like there's incredible stats around the damage that use of social media for kids is, right?
And that's what, like, so many of these platforms have been trying to stop these things coming out. Like Meta, and they spend billions of dollars on hundreds of millions of dollars on lobbyists in the US going to fight these things, right?
Yeah.
But like we know, for example, like that between like there's a great book, a guy called Jonathan Haidt, The Anxious Generation. He's like one of the leading like people studying all these things, and like some stats that he was talking about in his book that we know, like Instagram kicked off in 2010. We know that from 2010 to 2020. Over those 10 years, that anxiety amongst 18 to 25-year-olds more than doubled.
Yeah, okay.
Right, and these are US-based stats, but it's a pretty good thing for the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Right? We know that the really sad one, that hospitalizations for self-harm for 10 to 14-year-olds more than tripled.
In that same time.
In that same time frame.
That's horrendous.
And so like what we know that like anybody that talks to, works with young people, has always had a pretty big idea that social media is at least contributing a little bit to this.
Absolutely.
But these sort of more and more studies by these types of people are coming out saying that not only like is it what we think, it's starting to, like, it's what we know now. Like it's actually showing that these things are dangerous, which is why Australia is leading the world in something like this. And it's interesting to see whether this one might stick.
Absolutely. I'm stoked about it as a parent for sure. But let's talk about what that might mean for dance studio owners.
Because that's what obviously people are going to go towards, right? Because it's a big part of our industry.
It is a big part of our industry. It's a big, a lot of people, it's where we do most of our advertising. It's where we get most of our clients, most of our leads, So a lot of people, we were having a conversation with a whole group of people about what does this mean for dance studios and their marketing going forward, I guess.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be a few things. I think if it does obviously go into place, then we will see a reduction in our follow count almost overnight.
Yes.
Because those 16 and under accounts will automatically disappear.
Absolutely. And it's an interesting thing because I believe for most studios, and we're talking about most studios, not every single studio, most studios, obviously you've got some people under 16 following you for sure, mainly your clients. Or, kids that go to the studio down the road, right? That's pretty much like where it is. Not usually and it's that hard thing because they're not really people that we're trying to market to.
Exactly.
As a generalization, we're not generally trying to market. They're either current clients or people that are probably dancing somewhere else.
Yes.
And I think that's a really interesting thing because, we're really big that you should be doing all of your marketing, all of your Instagram should be talking to your ICA. Yes. Your ICA is a parent. It is not a child. Yep. However, I know what it's like when you run a studio social account. It's nice to have those likes. It's nice to get the kids engaged and the kids, commenting, and you have the 15-year-old who's commenting on their friends, routine that they did an open class last night or whatever that is.
Sharing comp results.
Yeah, sharing comp results, whatever like that. We all have a lot of interaction from those teens, even though they're not our ideal client, right?
Exactly. And we know that somehow that we know that likes, shares, comments obviously drive the algorithm and get us seen and all those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
So I think without a doubt there is going to be an impact there. But will that, like, I also think with that negative side of it, I think there's actually going to be a pretty big opportunity as well.
Yes.
Because like you were saying, from an advertising and marketing perspective, it's actually going to majority leave the people that we're trying to talk to on there. So those that will be on there,
the people that are left,
the people that we are trying to, when we run our paid Facebook and Instagram ads, are primarily going to be the people that we're trying to sell to. And that's every marketer's dream.
Yes, because less people for sure, but more the right people, which means things like it might be that advertising costs come down. Maybe not.
We don't know.
We don't really know that, but definitely there's less, noise around, and our ads might be going to more of the right people.
Exactly. And that's why we are so, we're so passionate about teaching Facebook and Instagram ads and things like that, because back, we always talk about back in the old, like when we used to run our newspaper or radio ads or things like that, we were throwing them out there to an audience that we just didn't know.
And the 75-year-old, man's reading the ads and who has no interest in dance classes. Yeah.
And now we're going to be able to focus that even more, and that pool, like I said,
because we already can focus it on Instagram and Facebook, but it's going to even more tighten that, right?
And we know that the algorithms that train those audience selections are probably going to be a little bit better now. That, like you said, there's less noise out there of people that, less noise of people that aren't necessarily our audience. There's going to be less people, like I said, these platforms can pick up those that have lied about the age as well.
Yes.
Like they're going to know, like when a kid started an account when they were 8 and they were allowed to put in that they were 13 to start the account.
Yeah.
So that 14-year-old now is showing as a 19-year-old, for example. Maybe they haven't changed it.
Yeah.
These platforms are going to be able to, whether they do or not, pick up on that.
Yeah.
So some of those accounts are going to disappear as well. It's going to probably clean up a lot of that, that noise and that. So I think there is going to be, while there's going to be obviously the negative impact of some of the organic stuff, I think it might create a lot of pretty good opportunities for us on a paid side of things. Okay,
so we're talking about this for the majority of studios that we work with, and the majority of studios that we work with, just to be super clear, are mainly their ideal client is a parent who's never had a child in dance before. They're looking for a first time dancer, and looking for a fun activity for their kids.
Yes,
right.
And we know that we always teach that we're advertising. Primarily, we're wanting to spend the majority of our budget trying to attract 2.5 to 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
Obviously, we still want to attract older students than that.
Yes.
But
most of the new students dancing.
Essentially, attracting preschool to primary school age is such a better use of our funds and a much cheaper cost per acquisition. As soon as we get into that high school age range, we still try. Yeah. But it just costs. It's just a lot harder and it costs a lot more.
And there's not
money.
as many kids starting dance for the first time in high school.
Or looking to move.
Absolutely.
Like
now, I guess it doesn't, this might be a more difficult situation for, a handful of really elite studios, full-time studios, those kind of things that are actually wanting to market to students, I guess, to current dance students that might be currently dancing somewhere else. And I think that's a very small percentage, very, by small I mean minuscule percentage of studio owners. But I don't know, do you have any advice or suggestions around that and how you see that might work?
Yeah, so look, it's going to be, obviously you'll still be able to pick that target market up once they get to the age where they're able to have the accounts. Yes. And let's be honest, people's parents are still going to follow those things.
Absolutely. And the people that are looking for that, those people that we're talking about, are usually they're hardcore dancers already. Yeah. Their parents will be looking at, the full-time studio socials and showing the kids. Yep. I think there's other ways around it, right?
Yes.
whether YouTube's on there or not, it's yet to be seen.
Yeah, YouTube Kids we think is definitely carved out
which
what that
is
means,
weird.
but maybe it's worth investigating that side of things.
Absolutely, and maybe if you're that, you might want to look into how you can promote on that perhaps, or just be putting your content out there. But, I think that's an interesting side of it, but I do think that's a very minuscule amount of people, right?
And I think for those studios, I think it's going to reinforce how important making connections with other studio owners are. So it's going to really...
We're talking about full-time studios.
Yeah, those full-time studios that do look to attract the students once they've finished school and things like that.
Yes.
I think it's going to be a really key thing for them to be developing relationships with other studios around by going out and doing workshops and doing those things and making those connections to get in front of those students that way.
Absolutely. Hey, the other thing that, really springs to mind and how this could affect studio owners that I've been thinking about is I know that sometimes when we're talking about these general, like the majority of us as studio owners, where we're trying to attract parents, a lot of us are still doing that content that appeals to the kids. And as I said, I get it. I totally understand why.
We've all done it at some point.
I do it too, absolutely. But I think it just means maybe we don't have to focus so much on that.
Yes.
We don't have to focus so much on that anymore and it being getting the likes from the teenagers and all of that kind of stuff. We can actually dial down our content, which maybe makes it a little bit easier because we know that producing content for Instagram and Facebook, God, it's a huge job. All of a sudden you thought you were a dance teacher and all of a sudden you're a social media content creator, right?
Yes.
And I think that's actually quite a good thing because if you know that there's no kids on the platform, if that's what happens, you can make sure that your content is just for adults and is appealing to that ideal client, not having to get confused with some stuff being, for the ideal client and some stuff being like, hey, the kids will like this.
Yep, exactly. Because that's the essentially the game that we've got to play at the moment.
Absolutely.
Because we've got to play the game as it is, not how we want it to be. So that's where everyone's at the moment. And look, and like we said, I think maybe what would you say, Amanda, if we still had our studio and we had this potential change on the horizon? We're this is still at least 4 months away from going.
Absolutely, it's meant to be beginning of December. Yeah,
and that's it may change 5 or 6 times before then. So we don't want to go making massive sweeping changes now. But what sort of stuff do you think studio owners should be starting to think about?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I think getting really clear on your ideal customer avatar.
Yep.
And who you're actually speaking to. Now, we've done whole episodes on that, so we might link them in our show notes.
Yep.
Because I think that would be something that would be really valuable to kind of look at. Who are you actually talking to and what kind of content do they want to see?
Yes.
If they're first-time dance parents, making sure that your language really appeals to them, and it's not
not jargony.
Yeah, there's no jargon in it. That's a great word, jargony.
Jargony. I'm pretty sure if you look it up in the dictionary.
But that you're not using words that we use inside our industry. Words like wreck, for example. That's a word that we use, or contempt. You know what I mean? That's a word that we use. Or level 3 gold star tap.
Yep.
What the fuck is that? I'm sorry. But you know what I mean? Making sure that our language appeals to a brand new parent to dance and just getting really clear on that ideal client. So if this does come into effect, you can really make sure that all of the content that you're creating really is speaking to that ideal client every single time and every piece of content you make.
Yep. And if it's something maybe you feel like you haven't been doing, then just over the next few months, just use this time to practice doing a few of them.
Absolutely.
Just to start getting some reps in, start getting some practice in to if these changes do come in and it all goes through as it's currently set up to, then you'll have a bit of a front foot on it.
Absolutely. Hey, this was a bit of a different episode today.
Yes.
Different
location,
different episode, talking more about actual news and things going on in our world at the moment. If you liked this, we would love feedback. We love feedback on our episodes. So please drop us a message on Instagram, Dance Principles United. We love to know what we can do to support you and what you guys like to hear, because it really helps us make better episodes. Yep. Also, it would mean the world to us if you clicked that subscribe button wherever you're listening. listening. We would appreciate it so, so much because it helps us create more content.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Oh, and also, did you mention the YouTube? Like we're trying to...
Yeah, please like us on YouTube. We need some friends on YouTube, so please go over and check us out there and you can see our lovely faces. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Bye.